So thank you for having me at least and allowing me to come and talk to you about farmers markets. I hope to, the presentation is actually quite short, maybe 10 minutes or so. And then I hope to get into some of the questions that you have. I think a lot of the questions are answered in the presentation. I hope that the information I share with you today provides some guidance on the expectations for food safety and the requirements for food safety that's legislated. And I am going to touch on some of the COVID pieces, so on how to operate safely during a pandemic. So the role for the health unit is, it's multifaceted. We're here to provide information for you. We're here to provide you with the knowledge and how to, operate safely at a farmer's market. And we do that through, best practice. And then also there's some legislative components with it as well. We enforce and ensure compliance with the Health Protection and Promotion Act and the Ontario Food Premises Regulation. And like I said, we take out a progressive enforcement approach, which means that we will educate you and provide you with all the knowledge that you need to operate safely. And we do carry an enforcement hat as well. So if we feel that there's an immediate risk, we have the tools that we need to take if we have to do any enforcement, whether that's, closure or seizing and destroying product if it's deemed unsafe, that sort of thing. So that's sort of our roles when we are at the markets. Generally, we reach out to markets annually. So if you're a brand new market, you should be notifying the Public Health Unit. Under the Health Protection and Promotion Act, you are required to notify the medical officer of health of your intent to operate. That's with any kind of food, whether that's at food establishments or restaurants, farmers markets, home-based business. You are required to notify the medical officer of health. And we do have an organizer form. Some of you are probably very familiar with it. It's a form that it's on our website. I've linked it in the presentation for you, which we'll likely share. I'll share with Becky at day's end, and she can possibly share it with the group as well. The organizer form is linked in here. Just general information. You can write down we request a list of all of the vendors. So if you're looking at a brand new operation, you're required to do this prior to opening. We also ask that you do this on an annual basis. So those farmers markets that are existing, that we have to do an assessment annually. So we'd like to hear from you on an annual basis. Generally, this time of year is great because you're gearing up for that spring, summer season, that peak season. We want to know a list of all the vendors that are on site and a type of just a short summary of what they're selling so that we can determine where you're going to fall under the legislative requirements. Because I'm sure you all know that there are some exemptions and there's some exceptions to the farmers markets under the legislation, which we'll get to shortly. So are you or are you not a farmer's market? And that's really, you're all farmer's markets. So I should really watch how I'm wording this. You are all deemed farmer's markets through your lens, but through a public health lens, we define farmers markets a little differently than maybe you do. And it's based on a ratio of how many farmers versus non-farmers that are at the market. So if a farmer's market through a public health lens is determined using an assessment formula. So counting all of the food vendors, all of the vendors that are at the market and determining which of those are true farmers or primary producers. And if your assessment formula results with a 51% of true farmers, actual primary producers, then your market would be exempt from the Ontario Food Premises Regulation. We call everyone else through a public health lens, we might call them a public market, we might call it an other market or a non-farmers market. You might hear that language, you might hear different terms being used, but that term is used when the assessment formula falls below that 50%. So most of the vendors on site are not farmers. And if that's the case, then the Food Premise Regulation will apply in addition to the Health Protection and Promotion Act. How we determine, this is just a simple equation and I wanted to share it with you. When our inspectors go in on an annual basis, they'll do an on-site assessment. Last year was a little unique in nature because of the pandemic, but you likely didn't see a public health inspector this year. I fingers crossed, we're going to kind of proceed back into some normal operations, or what was once normal, hopefully this year, and you should see a public health inspector. That is our goal. And what they do is when they get on site, they do a quick count of all of the vendors, and then they'll do a quick count of all of the farmed vendors and determine your calculation right on site. And like I said, this is done annually. We tend to do it peak season. We tend to do it July-ish, because that's usually when, I mean, we're in Canada, right? So it's usually when all of the local harvest happens. So that's usually when we do our assessment. So these are just some brief definitions because I am going to be using them throughout the presentation. A farmer's market food vendor is anybody that sells food at the farmer's market, essentially. So it could be a farmer, it could be someone who's selling baked goods, it could be someone who's selling meat pies, it could be anybody that's providing food at the market. And this definition comes right from the Ontario Food Premises Regulation. A farm product is a little bit different. It's products that are grown and raised on a farm, ready to eat. So fruit, veggies, grains, maple products, honey products, etc. And I wanted to include the definition of a farm because this is where I want to be really clear that what a farm is and what we're looking at when we're determining if you're a primary producer or a farmer. And we determine a farm to be, we use the ordinary term farm, right? The meaning of a farm. So a rural area with a barn, it could be a full-time farmer, part-time farmer, a hobby farm. What it does not include, a property with, in your backyard where you might have, a couple of veg and you want to bring it to the market and sell it. That would not classify as a primary producer. It has to meet that true definition. So, and I wanted to give some examples because there are some discrepancies, or there are, it's a bit of, it can be a tad confusing at times. And a person selling cookies, preserves, cakes from their home, they would not be considered a farmer or producer. A person selling maybe garlic, potatoes from their actual farm, yeah, likely going to be a producer. A farmer selling knitted mittens from the wool from a sheep that's on their farm, that's not a primary producer. I think like years ago, we might have classified that term as a secondary or tertiary producer. We're not using them in our calculation. We are primarily focused on our primary producers and true farmers. And someone who's selling candles or any holistic care or any soap products, things like that, they are also not deemed a producer. I wanted to just quickly go over the definition of a health hazard, and because it's a term that I'm going to use over the next couple of slides. And a health hazard defined in the Health Protection and Promotion Act is a condition of a premise, a substance, thing, an animal, what we call like a solid, liquid, or gas. Anything that's going to cause an adverse health effect on a person is what we call a health hazard. Is what at a farmer's market could possibly be a health hazard, at a farmer's market. And we do get asked that question often, what possibly can be at risk at a market? Well, if you're preparing foods, are you preparing your foods at proper temperatures? Are you keeping cold foods cold? Are you keeping hot foods hot? Are you, is your meat, inspected? Is your milk pasteurized? These are things that we are constantly looking at to determine if there's an immediate risk or a risk that there could be an immediate risk. And hazardous, is your food hazardous? It's a question that does often come up, because there are exemptions in the legislation for low risk foods. So if you're a home-based business and you want to make some cookies, you certainly can do that from your home. And there are some exemptions. There are some exemptions with that, you might not need a immediate hand sink in your kitchen, as long as you have a means to wash your hands. Food handler training, there might be an exemption with that. And I'll get into these a little bit later in the presentation, but the hazardous food component and understanding if your food is hazardous or not is quite critical. A hazardous product is anything that has the capability of growing pathogens, so any bacteria or viruses or parasites. And that's generally food products like milk, eggs, meat, poultry. Some canned products have the capability of growing pathogens. And then non-hazardous foods are, pretty much the opposite. Stuff that isn't going to be, doesn't have the capability of growing pathogens. So low risk foods would be, cookies and cakes and breads and whole fruits and vegetables, popcorn, toffee, all kinds of candy. These are great examples of what hazardous or non-hazardous foods look like, and that you would likely be available at a farmer's market. And so if your market falls under what we call a true farmers market, like I said, you're all farmers markets on through your lens, but through our lens and our definition of farmers markets. If you are if your vendors produce 51% are true farmers, what applies to you and what doesn't apply to you? The Health Protection and Promotion Act most definitely applies. So when our inspectors go on site, they're looking for things like graded eggs, your milk has to be pasteurized, meat has to be inspected, any immediate hazards, health hazards that, through some of the examples mentioned before, are they seeing any of this stuff? That stuff will always apply no matter how you roll the dice. What doesn't apply is the food premise regulation. So each of the vendors at the market don't have to comply with Ontario Regulation 493, which is the nitty gritty and all the specifics for food establishments. If you are preparing foods on site, however, we do ask in Simcoe Muskoka that you have a hand sink on site, especially now with COVID. If you are preparing if there's any handling on site at your market with any kind of food at all, we are requesting that you do have some sort of means of hand washing available on site. And like I said, especially now with this pandemic, it is more critical than ever. Handling food with proper utensils are things that we are looking for, that we would expect you to implement in your practices. Separating raw foods from ready to eat foods, ensuring proper temperatures. These are things that are best practices and that are still expected and required, even though you are an exempt market. And one of the big pieces is potable water. So if you are on site and you're providing water or using water in your food preparation, then your water needs to be potable, and you have to show that it is potable and have some sort of proof that it's potable. If your market is not a true farmers market through our lens, and meaning that your vendors, the assessment formula adds up to it's less than the 51%, that more you have more food vendors than you do farmers, or more vendors than farmers. The Health Protection and Promotion Act also applies to you. So that applies, like I said, no matter how you roll the dice. And the Ontario Food Premise Regulations also applies to you. So all of the requirements that any other food establishment has to abide by, each of the vendors also have to abide by the requirements in that legislation. Foods must, and this is in the legislation itself. So in Regulation 493, foods must come from an inspected facility. That inspected facility still can be your home, and I want to make that very clear. I think there's a bit of stigma with operating out of your home, and that it's a big no-no, but that's certainly not the case anymore. There's been some movements made and some flexibility with the legislation. So, and they're fairly new amendments. You certainly can prepare it out of your home. We just need to inspect it and making sure that you're in compliance with the regulation. So in any case, food needs to come from an inspected facility. Food handler training is just another component. I just highlighted some of the key pieces in the regulation. Again, I can speak to you for hours and hours about the requirements in the regulation, but I don't want to take up too much of that time. So once your public health inspector determines that your market does, it needs to comply with the regulation, we kind of break it out into two. Two veins, basically. Are you producing? Are you at the farmer's market for more than 14 days? If so, you require to fully comply with the legislation. But if you operate for less than 14 days or less, then you can get away with some temporary measures. I did link some guidelines in here. They're also linked on our website, and those guidelines walk you through all of the requirements for that you are expected to adhere to. And if we have time, I can certainly look at those with you as well. I briefly mentioned this about the amendments to the legislation, and they have added. There's a bit more flexibility with, needing. I think, there's just more flexibility with balancing health and safety and food safety practices, and allowing businesses to thrive and not having any red tape. And with that, hand washing stations, dishwashing equipment, and food handler training have a bit of exceptions with them. So anybody who is serving low risk foods, again, bring you back to that slide about what a low risk food is. And if you prepare those low risk foods, or if it's solely prepackaged, then you don't need to have food handler training, which is best practice. Let's be honest. I mean, it's something that we highly encourage anyway. And you don't have to have a dishwash sinks or hand sinks, in your immediate, area, but you do have to have something available. You still have to hand wash, and you still have to dishwash, but there's a bit more flexibility with those exemptions, and they're brand new to January 2020. So a year and a bit. And just some general key messages when you're in terms of food safety is that, when you are at your market and you're preparing foods and you're really unsure if you did, something correctly or incorrectly, or if you're, whenever you're in doubt, throw it out. It's just a slogan that I think public health uses all over. You probably heard it many, many times before. And, just understanding the types of foods that you want to prepare at your market. Always connect with your health unit. We really try to build relationships with the market managers, and trying to build that connection so that we can work together, ensuring, again, finding that balance between food safety and that community involvement. So it's working quite closely with our partners on that. Now, I wanted to quickly touch on, because this is something that a lot of the questions that I did receive were a lot related to, the pandemic and operating a farmer's market during these times. And as you know, Doug Ford's making an announcement. It's probably now, or he's in the process of doing it now. And we're likely going into a province-wide shutdown, which is going to impact markets slightly. I mean, farmers markets were deemed an essential business. They're sort of lumped in with the grocery stores, the food stores, that sort of thing. But what I want to make note of, and I want to bring to your attention, is that if you have a market that's operating in shutdown, gray zone, or red zone, so those colors in our framework, that your vendors primarily have to be selling food. It has to be an essential part of kind of falling under that essential business. So that I want to make that very clear. Once we get into the other legislation and the other pieces of the framework, so those other prettier colors, it's a little bit looser, and then the markets can expand a little bit more. I did highlight some of the requirements. So generally, farmers markets are limited to indoors. So I'm just speaking of indoors, limited to 75% capacity. That's red. So that's today's requirement, and the requirement likely tomorrow. After that, you're down to 50% capacity once we get into the shutdown requirements. Anybody who's waiting in lineups, need to be masked. And I'm just highlighting some of the key some of the key pieces here. Safety plans are required. So every market must have a safety plan for COVID-19, meaning that, you have to have all of your measures outlined, on paper, and all your practices outlined on paper, and how you're protecting your patrons that are coming in, how you're protecting your staff and your vendors, and what measures are you putting into place to reduce the spread of this virus. The masks, face coverings are obviously mandatory, which I'm sure you're all very well aware of. Singing performances are prohibited at this time, and they're prohibited until we get into those prettier colors, like I said. And if you are serving and getting close to close to a customer when you're at the market, highly suggest you have a face shield on as well. Even if it's outdoors, it's just, again, best practice, especially with the variants of concern. And we do have screening requirements as well. You're not required to actively screen patrons coming in, but your vendors, I would highly encourage that you screen your vendors. So for market managers, making sure that your vendors every day are, self-screening, going through those questions, going through, are they well, are they not well, and that there's measures in place, to determine, what to do if they're not well. And if you do have any dining in, I don't know if any farmers markets have any, little dining areas where they might be able to enjoy some of the product that was purchased at the market. There are some strict instructions with that. I did link our guidance for farmers markets for red, but like I said, in 2 days' time, we're likely going to be out of that. So, but I can certainly have Becky send that off and share some of those guidance documents with you. But if you're familiar with our website, if you've been connecting with us, I'm sure most of you are already very well aware that this document exists. And I just put in my contact information here as well from Tony and myself, just to, if you want to reach out, if you have any general questions, please connect with us. We're here to help. The legislation changes in terms of COVID. The legislation changes every day. The red, just to give you some idea, the red regulation, so Regulation 263, has changed 40 times since we've started it, which was I think in the fall. So it's been amended a number of times. So it changes frequently. So please connect with us. Like I said, we're here to help. We're here to guide you through so that you do everything safely, and you're protecting yourself and your patrons. And that is it for the quick and dirty of the presentation. And then I guess I can get into some of the questions. Yes, Becky, does that sound right?
Yeah, that sounds great. 2 of the questions that actually came up while you were.
Oh, okay.
I think you discussed them, but just wanted to verify. How do you prove that your water is potable? Sorry.
Yeah, it's a good question. You would have to do testing, and there's a number of requirements. So if you are on well water, if you're on municipal water, it's a non-issue. It's when you're on your own, if you're drawing water from a lake or a well, is where things would have to, you would have to provide some proof. But that's something that you would work directly with your inspector. There's some testing requirements that they can walk through with each of them.
Another question we got is VQA wines, are they considered a primary producer or a secondary?
That's a good question. I would have to get back to you on that one.
Okay.
Yes, that's a really good question.
Follow up. So for the person who did that question, I will email you directly, and I'm thinking a lot of our market managers on the call would like the answer, so I'll let you guys all know.
Yes.
And another question was, if you just have general inquiries about who to speak to, should you be following up directly with with your inspector, or should you be going to some extension at the health unit? Who should you be contacting?
Yeah, I mean, if you have a relationship with your public health inspector, by all means, reach out to them. That's, again, what they're there for. If you don't know who your inspector is, or if you don't have that relationship, you can certainly call our Health Connection line if it's just a generic question. And that number is, well, it's directly on our website as well, but I can provide that to Becky. And we have 2 or 3 public health inspectors on the line daily answering, just taking general information and answering questions. So they can certainly help you out.
And one of the last questions, we got it twice, was about labeling. Now,
Yeah.
so if something is a 50 plus 1% market, does it need different labeling than a less than 50?
And that's a very good question as well. Labeling is actually not, we don't, it's not covered under us. It's actually under the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. So any kind of, well, it depends on what it is actually. So there's multiple agencies that likely deal with, like at the farmers market. So nutritional facts, general labeling would all be under the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Most labeling is under the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. For produce, they're like under, I think it's under Regulation 119, and it's with under the Food Safety Quality Act. It's actually governed by OMAFRA. They have labeling requirements for produce, you know, countries of origin, things like that. So there are some specific requirements for produce, honey, maple syrup through them. But overall, general labeling will be Canadian Food Inspection Agency.
Perfect. And I think those are all the questions. Now, I know some of the people on the call did have very specific questions. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we will follow up with you guys directly about those questions that you may have had and provide you with the correct contact for those. I'm going to thank Shannon for participating. I don't see any other questions, and hopefully she can stay on the call. If anyone else has any questions throughout the time that come to your head, feel free to shoot them through to us on the question bar, and we can follow up with you later. Or alternatively, you can shoot an email to edo@simcoe.ca, and we will happily make sure that you guys get an answer. So I'm now going to start sharing my screen. And hopefully you guys can see it in 1 second. Perfect. And what we're going to do as part of this session is we're also going to let you guys know about all the different farmers markets that are available in Simcoe County. We have over 16 markets at this time in Simcoe County, and a number of them here today are actually going to provide you guys a bit of background on their market, provide you some information, as I think it's a great opportunity to learn about where you can sell your local products. So the first person that's going to speak to us today is Amanda from Clearview Township to speak to us about the new law and the Stainer markets.
Thanks so much, Becky. So my presentation is for the 2 markets that Clearview Township owns and operates, and myself and our team are the ones that put this on. Unfortunately, last year, due to COVID, we did not proceed with the markets, and it's I'm going to show you the information as our plan for 2021, but of course it's pending today's announcement, which is probably not going to be very good, but nonetheless, I'm optimistic. So next slide. Music Market Parket is the largest market that we have in Clearview. It typically happens on Thursday nights. This year, we're anticipating a start date of Thursday, June 2nd until August 25th. It's located at Station Park in Stainer. The market component is from 5 until 8:30 with live music from 7 to 9. Anyone who has been downtown Stainer on a Thursday will probably notice the large crowds. We get on average almost 1,600 to 1,800 patrons. We attract between 45 to 50 vendors. I do count the number of transactions on a nightly basis, and 2019's figures estimated there were over 827 transactions from our patrons to our vendors. And our main company, or the main demographic, is families, our local residents, and visitors and tourists that are visiting South Georgian Bay, especially those that are coming up for the weekend. The next slide identifies some of our vendor categories, and because of Shannon's presentation today, I'm going to go ahead and make some changes to our wording. We have farmers, secondary producers, which is our bakers and makers, Obviously, VQA and cideries are invited. This year's announcement with the craft brewers, I'm just investigating what that will look like. Artisans, our food vendors, and then our other category, which I'll explain in a few minutes. Our fee structure is a little bit different than most. What we do is we collect a marketing fee. So this year will be $35 that every vendor, a single booth at 35, or if you're a double booth, you pay 70. Then on top of that, you pay a $10 weekly deposit. If you come and you're an attendee for all 13 weeks, you get your $130 back. If you miss any of those dates, then we retain that $10 because effectively you're taking up that space. A single booth is just $35 per week. The other category that we have is a community booth. These are provided one community booth per week, and it's for not-for-profits, charities, our community partners, so that they get a dedicated space to talk about their organization or to fundraise, to sell their 50/50 tickets, etc., to the large crowds of people that come through Music Market Parket. And last year, it would have been the start of our Small Town Charm Partnership, which is a development strategy that we have with our real estate offices. And what that includes is for $35 per week, one real estate office gets prime space. And it's basically about living and relocating to Clearview Township and being part of a really great small town rural community. Some of the market amenities that are included is you can rent our branded tents at $40 per season. We do provide a free 8-foot table if necessary. I'm also looking into the shield barriers that Farmers Market Ontario is promoted through their partner Impact Canopy. So that's to be determined. We also do have the hand wash stations as required under the health unit. We do allocated vendor market parking. This year, we'll be having dedicated porta toilets for our vendors so that there's no cross-contamination with our patrons. Some other awesome information is we work with over a dozen community partners to put on Music Market Parket. We feature 6 theme nights. For some of the vendors that might be on the call today, you'll probably know about our Rocking Music Night, our Red White Market Night, etc. One thing that makes our markets really unique is we have a loyalty card program, and it's basically you make 10 transactions, you hand in your loyalty card, and you get a $5 voucher that can be spent at any of our vendors, except for our beer and cider and wine garden or any of the fundraising type vendor markets. And this is also a good way for me and my staff to collect information on the demographic and data. So over the past 3 years, we've been able to generate postal code data. We've been able to track the number of customers who are purchasing farm products versus other categories. It's just a great way of being able to tabulate information. We have a Vendors Helping Vendors program so that the vendors can network and connect, that they can purchase produce or purchase materials from other vendors, and we recognize that. And then, of course, the Music Market Parket is licensed, so we have a beer, wine, and cider garden. And like I said, we do normally have music every single Thursday night. Next slide is about the new Lowell Farmers Market. It's on Wednesday nights, so this year, June 2nd to August 25th. It's located in New Lowell. This is our small, quaint sized market. It's only about 10 to 14 vendors. Interestingly, though, we are averaging over 100 patrons, and of those, every single week, the patrons are making purchases, which is really great. There's a lot of repeat business that we find from the loyalty card program. Once again, we do offer live music. We love to have a good time in Clearview, and we like to have really lively markets. The vendor categories are also very similar, as well as our single booth fees are identical. It's basically what we've done is we've taken the successive Music Market Parket and we've just scaled it down to the new Lowell community. Once again, the community partnerships are fantastic. We do extend the loyalty card program. One of the other advantages is that your loyalty card can be used at all of the vendors in New Lowell and at Music Market Market. Likewise, your $5 car or your $5 voucher can be used at any of the vendors at those two markets. What's really exciting this year is the New Lowell Recreation Park has a brand new cement pad for our outdoor skating rink, and we're anticipating relocating the market onto the cement pad. Again, for those vendors that might be on the call, you'll know how dusty that parking lot is. So a new cement pad will definitely be a new feature. That's kind of the high level for Music Market Market and the New Lowell Farmers Market. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out here at Clearview Township. Thanks so much, Becky, for having me join.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Next, we've got up Joanne and Brianna to speak about the Elmville Spring Waters Farmers Market.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. So I work with the Township of Springwater. My name is Brianna Belcourt, and I am a planner. And I also do economic development. And Joanna, who's on the call, is our market manager. She really runs the show. I just help her as needed. So I'll just give you a quick overview about our farmers market. So our market is operated annually in the summer months from June till September. It operates each Friday from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., which I think might differ from a lot of other markets you see that happen either on the weekends or in the evenings. And our dates for 2021 are June 18th to September 17th. So we'll be operating for 14 weeks. It happens in the Elmville Community Hall parking lot. And it's a main route for cottagers and tourists that travel through the area, either to go to Wasaga Beach or to Collingwood. You can go to the next slide. I'll let Joanna give you an overview about the vendors.
So I guess we considered a sort of a small market. We've got average about 15 vendors, and we'd like to keep them to the 50% farmer food producers. So we select our artisans on who we need, and we don't like to double up our vendors in that area. So the fees are $25 a day, and there's a $25 administration fee with that. We give a bit of a discount for a season, so it's $305, which is a saving of $70 if you commit to the whole season. And I think Bri already did the dates that we run. June is really a bit slower for us. We average about 150 purchasers a day. July and August, we can see anywhere from 250 to 300. And then by September, we're back down to about 200 that we would see during that time. We didn't last year, but we do provide live music. And what else do we provide?
Joanna, if I could, I'll just add to that.
Sure.
Typically in the past, we didn't do it this year, but typically last year, in the past, we have done a market basket. So all the vendors kind of donate an item each week to this basket. It could be any item that they choose. They can choose to opt out as well, but most do not. And with that, they get ballots. So every time a patron makes a purchase at one of the vendors, they can fill out a ballot and drop it in to win the market basket at the end of the day. It's pretty awesome and gives you a pretty wholesome basket at the end. But we also have taken this information to track visitors, where they come from, how many, that kind of thing. It would be something we would like to continue in the future. Probably not going to happen this year, but we'll see how it goes with COVID. And then just to touch on a lot of our customers who visit. So we have a lot of repeat visitors that we see every week, a lot of local residents, retirees coming to visit. We also see just a lot of local traffic. So anybody going through the town, stopping, grabbing something quickly. Butter tarts are a huge hit at our market. So a lot of people stop just for the butter tarts and grab a few other things while they're there. But we see a lot of cottagers and tourists, people who are traveling to their destination who stop to grab. things, a lot of cottagers who come up weekly on that Friday morning just to stop at the market and then go to their cottage. Yeah, I think that's everything for us. If you have any questions for either of us about how the market operates, Joanna, if you have anything else to add too.
I think that's about all. Yeah, I think we've covered everything.
Yeah, nice, sweet, short, sweet and
Yep.
simple. That's how we like to be. But yeah,
Thanks, Brian and Joanna.
Thank you.
Just let everyone know I've never won a basket and I'm still jealous.
it is pretty awesome. I wish I could win.
Maybe next year.
Next, we're going to turn it over to Lisa with the Thornton Market.
Okay, there we go. I'm not seeing my face yet, but my video's on, so I don't know if you can see me or not. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you and we can see you.
Okay, great. Well, I hope I look okay. I have no idea. Our Thornton Farmers Market will be 4 years old this year. We run from May 28th through October 23rd. So it's a full 22-week market. We're right at the top edge of Thornton and we're right on County Road 27. So we get a large number of our customers are passing by on their way to the cottages. But we're also perfectly located to catch the local communities. That includes West Barrie, Southwest Barrie, Thornton itself, Cookstown. We have residents from the western edge of Innisfil, as well as some from Alliston and Angus, and a lot of people on their way home from the Honda plant in Alliston. I do not have an attendance record. We have people coming in from the parking lot and from the village, so it's really hard to get a head count. But my vendors who've been there for all 4 years tell me they get their best return at this market, and they're attending everywhere from Georgian Bay on down through Newmarket. Our annual seasonal fee is $390, and that's if you're coming every week. It's about $17 per week at that rate. If we have space, we will take weekly vendors, and that would be $30 if you're just attending a few times through the season. I'm sorry I didn't get a slideshow done. It's been a little crazy farming here this week, so that's my other hat. If you wanted specific details, I'm happy to send them to you. We don't have a website, but we do have an online application form, and I can send that to you if you email me. It's Thornton Farmers Market with no apostrophe or spaces @gmail.com. And we also have an active page on Facebook. It's called Thornton Farmers Market Ontario. So that's a good place to get the details. We have 20 vendors typically and room for 30 as we grow. But right now that's been a really nice number with covering the board and having a little bit of everything for people. And I think that covered all my notes.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Next, we're going to turn it over to Sue with the Collingwood Downtown Farmers Market.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Also on the call is Sam Ball, who is our market manager. He has a lot of hats, but that's one hat that he's taking. Farmers Market is Saturday mornings. If you take it to the next slide, it's got some details. I'm not going. Okay. Can you flip the slide? Sorry.
Oh.
Okay. This is just an overview. The picture, whoops, back a bit. Sorry. That's okay. I can just talk. It's Saturday mornings. The picture on the bottom right is what our market normally would look like. We're 70 to 80 vendors on a regular basis, right in the heart of downtown Collingwood. That one under COVID protocols, we got a little later start. We didn't get started until latter part of June. But we had it fenced and we followed all the protocols. We're under the municipal insurance. So of course we have a lot of hoops to go through. The town is very supportive of it, but there's a lot of hoops to go through to ensure that we're operating correctly. We're 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. So 21 weeks from the May holiday weekend to Thanksgiving. This year that's May 22nd to October the 9th. We are just a block off the main street in Collingwood and a block off the waterfront, right at the transit terminal. So it's ease of people to get there from a transit perspective. We're opposite the Loblaws parking lot, so that's a very busy area downtown. We operate rain or shine. Only thing that shuts us down is lightning. Traffic is very busy, as you can see, on a regular basis. We don't keep any data on how many, but we sometimes get complaints that there's too many people and I can't get through the market. So it's a very busy market and draws a high-end clientele, which is what the downtown draws as well from a business community. Those are our rates. I've just put in the farmer primary producers. We do have artisans as well, but we're well over the 50+1 percentage. We offer seasonal rates and weekly rates as well for our producers. And we have hydro and parking available adjacent to spots, subject to, of course, to availability, but we have a fair bit of hydro in the lot, which makes it easy for some of the vendors that need, freezers and that sort of thing. And, we have some fairly stringent rules and regulations. We operate with a fire department that is very specific about the type of tent that can be used. We used to be in the tent rental business. We're not anymore. So we're giving you space, and that's all that we're providing. We have in regular years, we have lots of entertainment. We have cooking demos, all of that. But this year, of course, this past year, we weren't able to do it. We still were very successful in working through the protocols, and we'll be looking at the same this year, 5 with the way the parking lot had to be set up. But we have washrooms right on site, as it's a transit terminal, so there's public washrooms that are right there, which is quite handy. Lots of parking in the downtown, and it's because we operate on Saturday, it's free. So there's no the vendors don't, if they can't park in the lot, if they're not accessing parking, there's lots of places for them to park right adjacent to the market area. And I think the next one is just a few of the things that we talk about. We certainly try to communicate with our vendors on a regular basis. The market template is issued each week. We try to keep everyone consistent, but sometimes that's not possible. There's something that happens that needs to be changed. And we try to communicate with biweekly newsletters to the vendors and try to take as much feedback as possible from them. And we instituted a code of conduct to ensure that all our vendors were getting along really well. And I think that's been very positive. And we always have staff on site that assist, but we try to ensure that everyone gets along really well. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Sue, so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Now we're going to turn it over to Michael with the Downtown Aurelia's Farmers Market.
Awesome, thank you very much. I'll keep the video off just for the bandwidth stuff. I'm happy to dive into our slideshow here. I believe you have it.
Michael, I wasn't sent a slideshow, sorry.
Oh, we sent it yesterday, okay. Or 2 days ago, actually. Interesting, okay. Am I able to screen share?
Yeah, I'll turn mine off and you can turn yours on.
Sorry, guys, before you guys gotta find, sorry about that. I'll just
Sorry,
look
everyone, for the technical difficulties.
No, that's fine. I'll take a blame for that one, but yes, I will load it up here. I'm good to start screen sharing. Sorry about this, guy. All right, so our farmers market. I'm just going to start off with a little video. So it was just a quick video we had made done last year, just because of, we had some previous stuff, but we wanted to kind of make it more updated with the COVID context in place. So we had to we use that as our launch to reopen, as we were closed from about, I guess, March of 2020 to mid-July, and we've been open ever since. So we are open year round. We are, yes, somewhat rare, but also fairly common. That so from May long weekend until Thanksgiving weekend. So from May to October, we are outdoors. And then from October to May, we are indoors. Our location is at the Early Public Library, outside in the parking lot in the summertime, inside the library in the wintertime. The only week we are not running is the week between Christmas and New Year's. That's our market break. So we are proud to say that we are open 51 weeks of the year. And we do offer various vendors throughout, which allows us to really capitalize on some of the holidays. Valentine's Day and Easter weekend tend to be really good for vendors who are in the chocolate business, kind of the baked goods. It allows for different kind of vendors to have an opportunity to promote their goods and services at our market. We are, as I said, at the 36 Mississauga Street West. So for those unfamiliar with Aurelia, our Aurelia Opera House and Aurelia Public Library share one parking lot, and that is where our market is located. So it is a high traffic, high visible area. Our bus routes, bus terminal is at that location as well. So it does allow for a high traffic count and high visibility for our market. As the video showed, we are, it's every Saturday from 8 a.m. to 12:30, 51 weeks of the year. And we ask for vendors to arrive between 6 and 7 to begin setup. Especially in the summertime when we are outdoors, is we want to make sure that all the vehicles that will be on site are on site before, as you say, society kind of wakes up, because the parking lot is exclusive to the farmers market. So we do take it over, so there's no cars parked there. Our audience, we say, is fairly broad. I was 25 to 65, and originally it was always, I would say, I'd look at maybe adults 40 to 65, but we have seen a bit of a trend in the last couple of years of the younger adults coming to the market. And that is just, I think, due to some of our vendors that we have, but also the fact that we are right downtown, potentially we do market as a tourist destination as well. For people who are up here for the weekend, we do pitch the farmers market as a destination to kind of get that Aurelia flavor. And then our fees, they range from $20 to $75, and we do offer discounts to students. So that's everything from, depending on what kind of vendor category you're in, if you are signing up for a seasonal rate or a weekly rate. A seasonal rate does provide a discount, and we do ask you to be able to pay upfront and commit for the entire season. I guess if I was to go backwards in terms of the season, we do classify 3 distinct seasons. So even though we're open year round, if you want to be our summer season is May to October. And then we have a fall season, which is October to December, and then a winter season, January to May. So you do have the option to kind of say, you know what, that's the season I want to operate in. You don't have to commit for all 51 weeks. So there we go, I'm jumping ahead. May 22nd this year to October 9th for the outdoor summer season, and then the indoor fall, winter, spring, October 16th to May 14th is when that takes place. As we mentioned, the fee structure. So we have 3 different rates. We have the seasonal rate, the casual daily rate, and the non-conforming daily rate. So we do have a few non-conforming vendors, which our council adopted as we are a municipal market. So those are some vendors that may not meet our standard policy or standard kind of guidelines, but they've been grandfathered in over years. They've been long-standing market vendors that we don't want to push away. But once those vendors leave, we probably will likely not replace them. So we have winter indoor 6-foot frontage with 1 market stall, or you can have outside in the summer markets 10 by 10 or 10 by 20. So one stall or 2 stall. If you sign up for the seasonal rate, it works out to about $20 a week. But if you only want to come in, I say, you know what, I'm selling cherries, and cherries are really only good for a few weeks of the year in terms of a harvest season. Well, then you can pay the casual rate and say, I'm only coming on these X weekends. We do see an influx of casual daily rates usage around specific holidays. So Valentine's Day weekend, Christmas markets, Easter weekend, we might get a lot more casual vendors who only have a specific product for a specific time of year, which helps us expand our product offering. And that's the I'm trying to think what else to touch on. Virtual market, we launched that in 2021. So we're using Local Line. So many other have mentioned, we do ask the vendors, we control all the payments through to Local Line. So all vendors have to do is pay their market fee plus the virtual market fee to the city. We then do all the payments to Local Line. All we ask is that the vendors manage their Local Line website in terms of taking photos, uploading their product, and allowing they take care of their inventory. But what we do at the virtual market is we then, with that fee, facilitate a curbside delivery, curbside pickup, which was advantageous for us in January, and we probably likely will be looking to really push that again in April now that we are going back into a shutdown. So what we do is any virtual market sale done by Thursday at noon, the vendors lets our market manager know, and then we ask for the vendor to bring the product Saturday morning, and curbside pickup starts at 10 a.m. So our market manager will facilitate the delivery of goods to the client, and that way the vendor doesn't have to remain on site if they wish to just be the virtual market. We do offer a 25% discount for all students, and that students is anyone who is under the age of 18 or attending post-secondary school full-time. So if you are a full-time worker who's doing your master's degree part-time, you wouldn't qualify for the student discount. This is really geared towards young entrepreneurs and people in school full-time. Vendor categories, similar to what they're healthy and presented, we have farmers, growers, prepared food, baked goods, and crafters, artisans, and then non-conforming, which I mentioned before. So you fall under any one of those 4 categories to become a vendor. That's the slideshow I had for today. I do want to mention, so my name is Michael. I'm the manager of tourism for the city of Orillia. So our market is, it's housed within the business development, culture, and tourism department for the city. So we do have those resources provided to the market. And then on this call, we do have Diana Smith, who's our market manager. You saw in the video was we originally had Alex Roth, but she is on maternity leave, so Diana is our market manager for the year. So if you do have any questions, we can definitely put you in contact with either myself or Diana to be able to answer any questions related to the Orillia Farmers Market. Thank you very much.
Thanks for participating today. Now we're going to turn it over to Kale, who is actually going to talk to you guys about 3 markets. He's going to talk to you guys about the Orillia Fairgrounds Market and the Southern Georgian Bay markets, which are held in Victoria Harbor and in Midland.
Hi, hello everyone. Becky, thanks for the opportunity to be sharing this information with you and with everybody who's on the call and everyone throughout Simcoe County. So I'll get started with the information on the Orillia Fairgrounds Farmers Market. And this market is an all-year market. We go outside the first week of May. So this year, that's looking like it's May 1st. and a lot of people are really anxious to get outside this year, especially with the way things are currently right now. We are outdoors more than half of the year, so we're going to be outside 27 weeks, and we will be outside all the way until the last week of October this year. So it ends up being 27 weeks that we are outside. And the hours of the fairgrounds market are from 8 to 1. And the location of it is on Fairgrounds Road, which is just outside the city limits of Aurelia, and it's in the township of Severn, Ontario. So, and if you're taking Highway 12 out of Aurelia, it's just it's right at the Toyota dealership onto Fairgrounds Road going down there. The wintertime brings us a lot of kind of the regulars, a lot of the locals. We don't see a lot of tourists or cottagers necessarily in the wintertime, though we did see more this year. And we saw a lot of people that we normally see in the summertime that weren't kind of snowbirding down to Florida or the southeastern United States, because they were staying within the country. So we saw a lot of those regulars during the wintertime, but then in terms of demographic, summertime, we see everybody. We see the locals, the diehards that come out every week. We see cottagers, vacationers, and lots of people coming up to head north for the summertime. In regard to vendor selection, it's always fluid. We're a big enough market. We have outdoors when we're in the summertime, we usually have about 35, 40 vendors. So it's all right that we have a few vendors selling some of the same things. We don't have the exclusivity clause, just because we tend to be large enough to where there's kind of enough to go around for everybody, especially some of the more some of the popular items, such as butter tarts and baked goods. And summertime, you'll find several different vendors having the same type of vegetables, and there's just enough to go around. So there's no exclusivity per se, but I'm always just kind of looking at the applications, just kind of seeing what everybody's selling, because I don't want to get too heavy on one particular thing, and have half the vendors end up being selling bread or something like that. So always just kind of being aware of how many we have, how many of a specific vendor we have compared to the numbers for the rest of the market. At the same time, always making sure that we're having our farmers be the 50% plus one as per the health unit guidelines. The fees vary with the season. They do decrease a little bit when we go inside from January until April. Inside they're $25, and then summertime we kind of have different rates for what kind of vendor you are. We tend to have lower rates for farmers and food producers, and so it's anywhere from $25 all the way up to $36. It is depending on what category you are, and then we also have the option for a seasonal fee. And that brings the price down. I believe it's 20%. And then we have some other discounts in there if you want to just come 4 dates out of the year, or if you'd like to come for half a season. There are further discounts to incentivize vendors for coming out for more than one farmers market at a time. So that's about all I have on the Aurelia Fairgrounds Farmers Markets. We're like I said, we're open all year. We just usually take the last Saturday of the year off and the first Saturday of the year off. So there's kind of a 2-week stretch in there where we have those 2 dates off, and then it's open year round. And from there, I will pass it over to Kale. That's myself. I'll pass it over to Kale to talk about the Southern Georgian Bay Farmers Market. And just to go back to the Aurelia Fairgrounds Farmers Market, I am the manager there. And I also sit on the board for the Southern Georgian Bay Farmers Market. So I volunteered for SGB to speak about the markets, just because I was going to already be on the call. So like I said, I just sit on the board, And it's the same body, Southern Georgian Bay Farmers Markets. There are just 2 markets that we do run. One is on Friday afternoon. That's from 3 to 7, and that's in Victoria Harbor. And the other one is on Sunday mornings from 9 to 1, and that is in downtown Midland. And both of these markets are seasonal outside from Victoria Day weekend to Thanksgiving Day weekend. In October, the Midland market on Sunday in the past has gone inside for the wintertime. We did not last year. We'll see where things go, how things turn out this year. We did do online a little bit for Midland at the beginning part of the year up until Christmas, but we're anticipating getting outside next month for the Victoria Day holiday weekend. The audience in terms of the people that attend the market are a good mix, again, of locals and tourists. In the summertime in Midland, it's a great venue to have a market. It's right downtown. It's across the street from the town dock. There's always there's an 11 o'clock sailing that the Miss Midland goes out onto Georgian Bay. So between the hours of 9:30 and 11 o'clock, it's really that's kind of the main hours of it. That's when it seems to be most busy, as people are kind of getting ready, getting their coffee from Grounded, which is across the street. There's about 3 different bike clubs that join up and use the trail that goes the trail that goes through town and goes to all the different adjoining small little villages and hamlets. And so there's a lot going on Sunday morning at the Midland market. Again, for vendors, both these markets are a little bit smaller than the Aurelia Fairgrounds Farmers Market. Midland is anywhere from 16 to 20 vendors per day. And the Victoria Harbor market there's room for about 8 or 9 there. And so there's no exclusivity. We're not going to say no to somebody that if there's already a vendor that has been a part of that market, but we do just kind of monitor to see if everything kind of evens out in terms of what products the vendors are selling. And then lastly, the fee structure for the Victoria Harbor market is just $20 flat. And then for Midland, it's $25 for farmers, food producers, and $30 for everybody else. So yeah, that's my presentation. Feel free to take it over from here, Becky. Thank you.
Thanks, Caleb. Next, we're going to turn it over to Gwen with the Coldwater Farmers Market. Gwen, are you there? Gwen? If you're there, we just can't hear you, unfortunately.
Okay, am I there now?
You are there now. Perfect. Thanks so much.
I just unmuted myself. It works wonders. Sorry about that. The Coldwater Mill Farmers Market's a very small, low-key, local outdoor market that has been operating for many years. The Coldwater Mill itself is a historic mill that was built in 1833 and is located on Mill Street, just off the main street of the village of Coldwater. And it's operated as a nonprofit charitable organization. We're all volunteers other than the students that we are able to hire for the summertime. So the market provides locally grown products for the local residents and also many cottagers and tourists from the area. It opens the last Saturday in May, which is normally the weekend of the Lions Club duck race, and runs until Thanksgiving weekend every Saturday from 9 until 1. So we just have a few vendors. It sounds like we tie in with kind of the Victoria Harbor markets. I'm going to highlight our main vendors and give you an idea of what they're selling. Ann's Marching Farm has 2 locations, one in Oro at McBride's Certified Organic Farm and one at their home farm north of Coldwater. They're members of the Ecological Farmers Association, who are farmers for climate solutions. They offer different kinds of organic produce and seedlings at the market, and they like to produce heirloom varieties. They grow lettuces, leeks, tomatoes, kale, spinach, carrots, herbs, and much more. Their salad mixers are very good sellers. And they like to try a new crop each year to experiment with new varieties that may do well in our changing climate. Allison Andrews sells seeds, culinary herbs, rhubarb, tomatoes, summer and winter squash, radishes, potatoes, beans, and gladiolas, and other seasonal vegetables from her hobby farm just outside of Coldwater. Campbell's Country Emporium provides fresh baked goods from her commercial kitchen, pies, butter tarts, tea biscuits, and cookies, and will take special orders for the following week. Their honey and maple syrup products are very popular with the shoppers, and fresh baked bread is also available each week. My grandma's farm, and I noticed a large display from Amanda's presentation. Stephanie is the only one who really isn't local to Coldwater. She comes from the New Lowell area, but we're fortunate enough to have her products at the mill. So I say Grandma's Farm works magic with her homemade preserves, choosing to try new and unusual recipes to keep things interesting. Stephanie tries keeping different blends of fun, unique flavors such as wild violet jelly, lilac jelly, spruce tip jelly, pina colada jam, raspberry and jalapeno jam, bumbleberry jam, Christmas jam, pickled garlic scapes and carrots, cowboy candy, and peach syrup. All were very popular. People were looking for them week after week. Fairhope Farms is just outside of Coldwater and sells freshly frozen, delicious whole chickens and parts, and also numerous spices at the market. And this year we're welcoming Cromuth Farms, which is a small family-run cow-calf business that has just begun selling their beef over the last couple of years. They offer many different buying options and more recently have started raising pigs and selling pork. The farm was established in 2011 and is located on 100 acres in beautiful Victoria Harbor. They pride themselves in producing quality livestock and meat. Over the summer, we have a few other vendors who join us as their gardens begin to produce from their farms. So as you can see, our market is small, but we are able to provide the community and seasonal visitors with a good variety of local fresh produce, baking, preserves, honey, maple syrup, beef, pork, and chicken. And in spite of all the COVID restrictions, we had a good season last year, and we look forward to an even better one this year. We do have some of our vendors add some crafts to their tables, but we also, inside the museum, we not only have the historical importance of the mill, but we also run a local artisan boutique, which has up to 40 work from 40 local artisans. And we put a table out for the farmers market, and people will quite often slip into the mill and check out our boutique as well. We have a restaurant on site, and we also attract the bikers. We're kind of at the juncture of a lot of trails there. So please join us and check out our special Coldwater Mill Farmers Market on Saturdays from late May until Thanksgiving from 9 until 1, rain or shine. There is plenty of parking there, although a lot of people, most of the locals, just walk to the market and pick up what they need and head on home. We do have a Coldwater Mill Farmer Facebook page, and we do try and post pictures weekly on the page for our community. Thank you for allowing me to share our special little market.
Thank you, Gwen. Next, we're going to turn it over to Helen with the Creemore Farmers Market.
Hi. The Creemore Farmers Market, it was established in 1997, and it's been running for 24 years. We have a website and a Google application on that website for anyone who is interested. We are run by a vendor representative board of directors. We are not for profit, and we're all volunteers running the market. A non-COVID market for us would have been at the station on the green with about 25 to 35 vendors. And it runs from May 22nd to October, so May long weekend to Thanksgiving. So an average of 21 markets, and our market hours are from 8:30 until 12:30. We ran a winter market. We started that about 3 years ago, and that runs from the beginning of December to the end of March. And we charge $35 for that one because of the cost for our indoor space. And a COVID market, we had to move because we were on municipal property. So we had to move to Creemore Springs Brewery. They were kind enough to let us be there, and we really appreciated that. We do collect stats. So we average about 150 to 325 visitors per market. And sales are between 3,000 and 5,000 per market, again, depending on the number of people we have going through. July and August are our biggest months with people going through. We don't represent ourselves as a tourist attraction, but we certainly do appreciate the tourists who go through. We charge $25 per market if you're a weekly vendor, or $325 full season if paid in advance. Otherwise, it's $400. We do run, in a non-COVID year, we would run a scavenger hunt for kids, which is usually run about 10 o'clock in the morning. And we do a Canada Day event, a market birthday, which is in September. And then we have music during the summer months, thanks to Clearview. We are a member of Farmers Markets Ontario, and we get our insurance through them. I am also a board member with Farmers Markets Ontario. And if anybody is looking to be a vendor this year, they're offering a new insurance policy, which is geared towards part-time. And if you want to go to different markets, it'll cover you at different markets. So it's something to check out. And that's all. Thank you very much for letting me present. Thanks, Becky.
Thanks, Helen. Next, we have up the Wasaga Beach Farmers Market, and unfortunately, Marlene is having issues with her microphone and video, so she's actually just sent me something to read. So I'll just read this off quickly. Marlene moved to Wasaga Beach about 6 years ago and realized that there wasn't a market and decided why not start one. So that's exactly what she did. They are located at the Rexplex of Wasaga Beach, right next door to the park. They're open on Tuesdays from 4 p.m. till dusk. And then, and Jazz in the Park then starts at 7 o'clock there, and it is coincided with their event. There's two of them running the market right now, Marlene and her co-chair, Anthony. They have a number of volunteers. They get about 20 to 25 vendors out each year. And they have about 400 plus participants at every one of their markets. Most of the vendors are very happy to be making purchases and supporting local. They also have a beer tent in normal years that is associated with Jazz in the Park, but unfortunately due to COVID that has been stopped. She also mentions that their market does a great deal of promoting themselves through social media and Instagram, and they've actually hired a company that does that to help them keep up with demands. They, oh, sorry, I'm just going through this quick thing. Yeah, so that's basically what they've got, and they're very happy to have out vendors. If you have any questions, you can visit their Facebook and connect with Marlene through there. And last but not least, we're going to go to Deborah and Antoinette to talk about the Agila Toserantio Farmers Market.
Thanks, Becky. Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you. Great.
Okay. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, Becky, for inviting us. The Agila Toserantio Farmers Market, our inaugural farmers market happened last year in 2020. It was the inception year. The Economic Development Committee actually had the support of all the residents wanting this farmers market. So it became a reality during COVID season. And we kicked it off last year. We created a vision statement for the market, which is to create a township farmers market that strengthens our farming community, supporting local farming families while providing our small businesses a location to sell their locally grown food. We will encourage sales of the highest quality of products from farm to table living and ensure transparency of where the items were made and grown. The market will represent our residents and our visitors that have access to fresh, locally sourced, healthy food options while promoting a reduction in environmental impacts. By successfully creating the market, this will also help to stimulate our local economy and encourage tourism. We hope it will also create an act of community participation, supporting social opportunities, educational awareness of food sustainability, while boosting our community spirit. We will strive to create an inviting and accessible space with a unique experience and to hold our market to the highest standards. Based on that vision statement, we created the logo that's on that slide, which is fun. We did a lot of branding with it, both on social media, through our advertising in our local papers, and it's created quite a buzz in our community. Next slide. Here you will see our inaugural ribbon cutting ceremony. We ran 8 dates last year. We had the support of our mayor, as well as our local MP, Terry Dowdle, and we were recognized for that effort in creating a farmers market for our community last year. Next slide. As recognition, we were recognized on the federal level, and they presented us with a certificate as being the only market in Ontario that basically launched during a pandemic. We also recognized that our students in our community needed volunteer hours, and we will be continuing that practice this year. Those needing community hours, we were able to achieve that for them, and it was a great addition to our market for last year and ongoing this year. Again, we also created social media posts. Lawn signs were created with our logo and we posted them on the road, and that created a lot of buzz as well. Next slide. You'll see here we did quite a bit of advertising, both poster format on social media and in our local paper to get the buzz going in our community and our surrounding communities. Next slide. These are some pictures. As you can see, our farmers market takes place in our municipal parking lot. We're on just off of Highway 89 on Highway 50. It provides the perfect mode of transportation for those that are going up to the cottage. And our market takes place every second Friday from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. Next slide. I've listed the location. Again, it's 7855 30th Side Road in Agila Toserantio, which borders Alliston. We have 28 acres of parkland on our municipal office, and we have provided the market in our parking lot. Therefore, it is fully accessible, and that was important to our community. The market will take place every second Friday from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. And the dates this year will be from June the 4th right through until October the 8th. Next slide. This is just sort of a key map of our vendors from last year. We had 15 ongoing, 15 every second week. We laid out a safety plan because as it was on municipal property, our fire department was heavily involved in our planning. So therefore it became important for us to map out both location, placement of vendors, as well as a map for our residents when they came as to what they were being offered with our vendors. Next slide. Here's just an example of some of our, one of our vendors, Kawiga, who came in with dog treats that she did. Next slide. Our 2021 vendor sign up costs for the season, which is 10 market dates, will be $180 if you would like to attend full time. Our part-time vendors are also welcome, and that will be $20 per date. There will be an additional charge of $10 per date for each vendor if they require insurance. As we have the, last year we put them on our municipal insurance, but we're also looking into potentially switching out to the Farmers Market Association insurance. The next slide. Here's just some broad pictures of our market from sort of an overview. Our market, we did quite a few surveys during the course of our inaugural market to see what our residents would like. We had anywhere from 195 residents to at the maximum 355 residents on every given market on that Friday attend the market during the COVID issue. Next slide. We welcome all and any local farmers to our market to sell their locally grown produce. We are a farmers market, so we are looking for the 50+1. We have a waiting room and a long list of artisans that would like to attend our market this year, but we are looking for more farmers. Considering the 49% allowance for secondary vendors and artisans, it's basically first come, first serve on the number of primary producers that have been committed. So again, this year going in, we have 15 various vendors that are already confirmed for joining our market in 2021. Next slide. And again, we do promote a community booth within our market. You'll see on the left of the picture, Procyon was welcomed on several occasions this year to provide a community booth. And then to the right is one of our local vendors that came in that does fresh flowers. Next slide. And if you're interested in an application form, our market rules and regulations, as well as pictures, be more than welcome to visit our AGTOS website at www.agtos.ca for more information. And again, thank you for having us today.
Thank you, Deborah. So that's the end of our presentations, and I just wanted to thank so much the health unit and all the market managers for participating today. We also like to thank everybody who's on the session live or anybody that's going to watch this afterwards for taking the time to participate. Again, if you have any questions at any time, please feel free to email edo@simcoecounty.ca, and we'll be happy to direct your questions wherever they need to go to get you the answers you need to be able to produce and sell your products at farmers markets or in store or anything. We've got a great number of local small business support agencies that are happy to assist you. After this session, we will be sending you out a survey and a link to the presentation. So if you could fill out the survey, it helps us determine what other events we should be running going forward. And again, thank you everyone for attending. We hope you had a great session, and we are always here to help. And we'd like to thank our the volunteer committee from the small business support agencies that undertake this. And we'll say goodbye to everybody.